Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Deep Cuts Live. I'm your host, Antoine Reed, and been on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back today with a brand new episode and a brand new interview. Today, I have my friend Alex on. Alex is the owner of My Cigar Pack. So, subscription service is really, I think, very innovative in how he chooses the cigars for his club and his members. And I just really wanted to kind of get his perspective on where the industry is right now and kind of introduce you all to him as well, so you can learn a little bit more about him, and hopefully you'll be enticed to sign up for a My Cigar Pack subscription. So let me bring Alex on. How are you?
Hey, what's up, brother? Thank you for having me once again. I'm delighted to be here and excited to share whatever I can bring to the table. I don't know if people are going to find that interesting, but I'm looking forward for the next hour to enjoy this cigar and just have a good time with you.
Yeah, and for people who are watching this, my voice is like shot for some reason. Like I was traveling last week, so it might go in and out, but it's life. I don't know how else to explain it.
So is mine a little bit. So I'm just hoping this will cure me.
Right. So what are you smoking? I guess that's a good question to kind of start with.
I'm smoking an Aganorsa Leaf Aniversario 6x56 or 58. It's a Toro Grande. I don't typically smoke the larger Vitolas. I usually like Coronas. If it were for me, I would just smoke Coronas, Lonsdales, Panatellas. But I'll enjoy a Robusto and something like a Bellicoso. But these Vitolas, I rarely, reach out to or find in my humidor. But ever since I had this particular one with TJ at his office a while back, I just loved the size. We went crazy and placed it in one of the tiers for this month. So I'm just making sure it's smoking good and enjoying it as well.
I feel like Aganorsa is one of those brands that everyone should be smoking because they grow their own tobacco and they obviously have the skills to make a great cigar. And yet people are still discovering Aganorsa, which I guess is a good thing. I mean, you never want to plateau, but it seems like every year they kind of raise the bar and really out there.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think I have had this particular conversation with TJ. And I say, I just don't get it. And he's like, well, neither do we, but we keep reinventing our branding so that people understand. He gave me a really funny story during COVID. The stores would open to just like hand out cigars and they would have people call in, regulars that would just be there all the time, right? So before the rebrand, before COVID, they hadn't rebranded their latest facings. So, he would tell me that shops were frustrated because they would call in and they would say, give me that red cigar that I love. And, they couldn't pinpoint that they were talking about the Aganorsa Corojo. And it was, the label said Casa Fernandez, and then below it said Aganorsa Corojo, but it was kind of the way it was presented. It wasn't clear to the smoker, even though that was his daily smoke, that that was an Aganorsa Corojo cigar. Of course, they have a rich history in terms of factory first growing operations, how they transformed from Tabacaria Tropical to Casa Fernandez and now Aganorsa. Paul Palmer's involvement with Eduardo Fernandez in Nicaragua. So it's a great story. If you have time to ever sit down with TJ or you find him in a shop or whatever, just grab him and tell him, hey, I want to know the story. He's going to love it.
What I find interesting about Terrence and Aganorsa is like, I wouldn't really consider them boutique. And I hate that kind of boutique word now because I feel like everybody in the cigar industry is boutique to a certain degree. But they have, especially during the pandemic, I mean, even a little bit before the pandemic, I remember when they released Supreme Leaf, for example, and they were just able to create like such hype and excitement for that cigar that the moment it got into stores, sold out. and then they did
And
it
it
with
still sells out. It's crazy.
right, and then they did it with Real Reserve. I think it's called Real Reserve, or the red band cigar. Same
Yep.
thing, like sells out, and I think that's like really awesome because I think so many times people in the cigar industry sometimes think that you have to be part of this, ginormous brand in order to sell out a product, and yet here's Aganorsa able to do that just by kind of creating like a little teeny tiny little bit of hype,
Yeah.
and I think that's just like awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I think and back to your point with brands calling themselves boutique, I think there's everybody that's not like General Cigars, Altadis with, Romeo and all those brands, or like Fuente, Padron, or Davidoff, everybody says they're boutique. So we're going to have to start drawing the line here, guys.
Right. So before we jump into like more kind of brand talk, I really want you to introduce yourself to people because, as I'm crawling around the internet all the time, I see that there's still people who are like, who's this Alex guy? Who's my cigar pack? And so I want you to introduce yourself before we kind of go any further, and then kind of tell us about what inspired you, I should say, to launch My Cigar Pack.
Okay, cool. I'm Alex from the Dominican Republic, born and raised, and started falling in love with cigars when I was a teenager. Started working with cigars when I was 19 years old. So that was at least 10 years ago. I'm not going to get into my age now, but at least 10 years ago. It's what I've always been passionate about. It's what I've always professionally known. I am a lawyer by profession. I studied law. I've followed up with a couple of business degrees, but that's just to kind of help me understand how I can run an operation, which is what I'm trying to do. It's a struggle. It's a hassle, but it's super rewarding. I worked with my uncle Hochi Blanco, who's not really my uncle, by the way. He's just how we call each other, family, just because there's that colloquial and that that appreciation and union. He grew up going to school with my mom, so I knew him since I was growing up. His kids went to my school. We were friends, and we were, always hanging out. So I started working with him when I was 19. I worked there 4 years. Then I worked 2+ years with Pro Cigar as a director of business development and legal affairs. So I did get an opportunity for 6-7 years to learn a lot about this industry in different areas before I ventured into my businesses. I tried to start a distribution and importation company, but that didn't last long. It wasn't my place. So I moved on quickly, and I started planning for My Cigar Pack and Cigar Yard, which is what we proudly run today. A small company with big dreams. It's something that I've been obsessed with since I want to say 2012. I was abroad. I was in upstate New York studying international business. It was a small associate degree that I would just fly out there the summers and spend summers there. And one of the projects was based on a subscription platform that I became obsessed with. And I said that 10 years from 2012, everything was going to be a subscription. So I wanted to do it. I obviously wasn't ready. I didn't have the maturity. I didn't have the understanding, the finances, just the whole nine. And I just felt that it was a great time to do it. I just gave away my small stake in that distribution and importation company. I said, guys, I'm going to go do something else. I've been wanting to do it for a while. So I took a quick little surf trip just to clear my mind, make sure that I understood that these were going to be, heavy, uninterrupted years that I would probably age a lot and lose a lot of sleep. And I got excited, and we launched My Cigar Pack in late 2019. Cigar Yard, its sister company, which is a online retailer, specialized in smaller boutique brands, and obviously growing into bigger portfolios, but doing so in a way that I believe just a few are able to do, just because of the way they operate. People like Small Batch, who I've got a lot of respect for. People like Atlantic, people like Fox Cigar, Mardo, just a handful of people that I have been, following and looking at, and something that I'm aspiring to grow into with Cigar Yard. And in terms of my cigar pack, I think you guys already know the drill with subscriptions. I feel like we were one of the first few specialized. I mean, there's Pravada, there's Cigar Club before us. There was a few, luxury just launched just right before us. And I feel that, you go back to your take on the magazine. I want to believe I want to say it's like 8 months ago already or more. It's crazy how every answer was completely different, every perspective. There were small points of interconnectivity, but everything was just disjointed. Everybody has a specialized approach, and we can all, amicably thrive in an environment where we are all putting a great effort to just do our best and give our best in partnership with the brands we work with. So I think that's a brief little intro. And then if you want me to just go ahead, your second question was more of like, what in terms of more focus on my cigar pack, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So yeah, my cigar pack has been established, as I said, for 3 years now. We've been always structured to be open and dynamic to changing and evolving. That's why we're doing stuff like releasing new tiers and modifying programs. I mean, I think you're the first person besides my new team that I'm telling publicly that we're going to launch 2 new websites first, second week in November. So that's going to change a lot how we operate.
Yeah.
It's going to make it more simple. It's going to make it more I want to say it's going to grasp a lot more things, and it's going to make it even better for our members. Just came back from Europe. I was in the Intertabak trade show in Germany, so a lot of expansion, international market expansions. We've always focused and prized value and dynamism, and by value we mean you're paying a little less and you're getting a lot more. You need to find the value in our products and our services in order to make it a long-term relationship with us and make it fruitful for the brands and the companies, the factories that trust us in representing their products. And then the dynamism just entails that. It really embodies being able to bob and weave, to adapt, to react to changes, to comply with your members' wants and needs. And obviously the market's going to dictate a lot on how you operate. So we've been lucky that we're able to do that. Nonetheless, we've stayed pretty conservative and small doing it. So I like the slow and steady exponential growth, because we're able to kind of keep everybody happy. Let's leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. And what I personally like about the subscription model is that, whenever I'm working with even like a podcast, you always think about the distribution. How do you get your product into the hands of the consumer? And I think for the tobacco or the cigar industry in general, even though that seems like an easy question, like, oh, I'll get it to a retailer. It's like the retailers have such limited space. And then they have so many different criteria. Like, you have to take on so many boxes in order to carry a brand, it's such a challenge. And what I like about my cigar pack is that you're exposing consumers to so many different brands. And it's going directly to their mailbox. They don't have to go anywhere in particular. to get those cigars. And I
Yep.
think that that's really, uh, at least for this industry, which is so traditional, it's really like just transforming how cigar businesses are able to do business. It's like create a product and send it to you all, and you all will get it in the hands of the consumer. And hopefully that consumer finds something in that pack that they might want to go back to, and then they might buy it from Cigar Yard, or they might go into their local tobacconist a little bit more confident that I know what I like now because they're trying so many different things.
Yep. I think you've hit the nail on the head, and even more so the way you phrased it. I mean, if you've seen anything that we post, related to how we push our relationship and our consumers' relationship with the product itself, is we couldn't be here without the brick and mortar structure.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't ever go away. The market's going to dictate how that's going to evolve in the future. But I always say, if you like a cigar and you buy online and that's your preference, we have that cigar in Cigar Yard, and we're going to do it respecting the brand as much as we can. But I will encourage everybody to go and visit your local tobacconist, local shop, and find that cigar. And if they don't have that cigar, we will be happy to connect that shop with the brand itself, especially now that after 3 years, we're ready to evolve into our next stage, not just going to international markets and doing this, but also, taking advantage of all the great products that we've been able to develop because of our relationship with the manufacturers, because of our consumer base, or our members that have given us the leverage and the validity to be able to release those brands that would give even more exposure to the brands and to the factories. And now we're going to be working a lot more with the shops all over the US and all over the world.
Yeah. And, to kind of echo what you just said, Industrial Cigar Company just had posted a comment a few minutes ago that says, "Afternoon, gents. Alex, you guys are doing it right, in my opinion." So it kind of shows like how you all are kind of working, not against the retailer at all, but kind of
Absolutely.
and hopefully making it a little bit easier. Because like I said, I think consumers, from my experience, they don't always know what they want, and yet they feel very intimidated when they walk into a cigar store, and they don't want to ask a question that makes them look like a newbie if the store is filled with experienced cigar smokers.
Correct.
So I think let me see, Industrial just posted, we need each other. We need to give exposure to boutique and craft cigars. So it's kind of, like I said, what I like about Cigar Pack is the variety. Like I follow you all on Instagram, and I see that every month is a completely different, but it's big brands, as in my opinions, and it's maybe a couple that I've never heard from. And then you also do your kind of own unique blends that kind of highlight more of the factories. So I think you all are doing like a lot that, I can't imagine what your day is like trying to juggle everything and keep yourself kind of, balanced.
I think the key here is love. I love this so much that even when I can't look at a cigar for a little bit, it'll only last for like 10 minutes, and then I'll just gravitate to grabbing it again and just understanding why I'm even doing this to begin with, and connecting to what you said. It's the term experienced aficionado or smoker, whatever you want to call it. It's relative. I mean, I've been working in the industry for 10 years, even though I'm a young guy. I will try to be as humble and as low key as possible before I have the opportunity to engage, just because it doesn't look right. Age is a synonym of experience, whether you'd like it or not, unless you're a NFL wide receiver that's been doing it for 10 years. You're still 29, but you're a veteran already. I walk into a humidor, and I've been, again, 10 years in the industry and smoking for a lot more than that. I'll walk and I won't know a lot of brands. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's a few brands that I'll, have my you know, not that I don't know them, but I maybe I haven't tried all the portfolio, and I'll ask questions, and those are the moments that kind of, uh, you know, validate what we do in this sense, in the educational aspect, in the experience aspect. And that's understanding that, before you go in there and buy, a new cigar from, even if it's a strong brand, a veteran brand that's released it, before you pay $15 for it, you're going to get it. If you're a member of my cigar pack, we'll feature that cigar in a more affordable price. And if you don't like it, that's part of the experience. A lot of people said, have said to me, dude, I like it, but I'm not sure if this is for me. I only like 3 out of the 5 cigars you sent me. I'm like, no, wait. You're actually giving yourself the opportunity. You're actually giving our purpose life by trying 2 cigars that you would otherwise probably would have paid a lot more, and 2 maybe wouldn't even have gravitated towards, because everybody's going to be pushing the big brands or the brands that they want to push in a humidor. And this is, again, a general statement, not in every particular case, but that's usually the case. And not liking a cigar is part of it. Yes, I will encourage them, give it another try. It's a natural product, could be plugged. A roller could have had a bad day when they made that cigar. So give it another shot. And if you still don't like it in your second run, well, that's part of the experience. Not liking stuff is part of the experience. I mean, I'm part of wine clubs. I'm part of coffee clubs. I mean, I'm part of every single subscription you can imagine. And part of it is me, deep diving into these weird coffee strains that I find, too spicy or just too aggressive or not too strong, things like that. And then I know that I'm not going to go into a shop or a coffee shop or whatever it is and buy more of it just because it's not my profile. Everybody's different.
Yeah, and I was listening to something recently where they're talking about demographics, and that older cigar smokers sometimes gravitate towards the brands that they know and they like, and they have like a certain brand and they just keep buying that brand. But like the younger cigar smokers, the people who are just coming into the thing, it's like they are willing to try so many different things. And that's when I think, the beauty of my cigar pack, because you get to, I think for a pretty good price, you get to try so many different brands, and it feeds that kind of, not brand loyal, but curious about the cigar, state of cigars, I would say, and just willing to have an open mind about it. Like I said, you're not going to like everything. There's sometimes when I will try a cigar and it leaves that filmy residue. It's like too harsh or whatever. And then there's other times where it's too light. And then there's other times where it's like, that was cool. But I think we all have to try. We have to smoke as much as we can to figure out what it is that we like.
For the rest of our lives. For the rest of our lives. It doesn't change. I mean,
right.
Tobacco's, every crop is different. Every yield is different. Every small square footage is different in terms of subsoil, in terms of, it's just, there's so many variables that even the products that even your go-tos are gonna be eventually different some way, somehow. Obviously there's a broader sense of consistency that's going to, cement those products as your go-tos or as your lifelong smokes. But at the same time, things change, brands change, crops change. There's new strains. There's strains that people don't disclose that they're working on. They can't yet disclose, but they're already putting it in product that people are loving or hating. So it's a world. It's impeccably complex, but at the same time, it's just so simple as picking it up, trying it, and enjoying it for that 45 minutes to 2 hours.
So how do you go about choosing what cigars go into my cigar pack?
I think everybody has their own subjective process. We build a relationship. Luckily, a lot of these brands that we've started with, I mean, between my cigar pack and Cigar Yard, we've only worked with 85 different brands. And I'm go to smallbatch.com. I'm pretty sure they have like 200 brands. So the first thing is having a relationship. I don't like, while I do respect the work of brokers and sales rep, I gotta see eye to eye with the owner or the manufacturer, because if we don't see eye to eye, nothing progresses. After we've established a relationship, we start engaging in conversations and ideas, and then we sync intentions, and we exchange ideas. I receive product, or I go out and buy different products. I'm always buying. I'm always going to shops. Tomorrow I'm going to 2 different shops and just picking up cigars. Every time I walk in, I buy 4 or 5 different cigars. Even if it's cigars I've tried, I try them in different vitolas. It's an ongoing process of seeing eye to eye, and then understanding what do they want. They want to feature a new product. They want to feature something that's old that they maybe want to bring back. They want to push something that they feel is just golden, but our demographic is not necessarily hitting that mark for them. There are some that say, okay, your smokers are my, Saka said this. Saka says, your smokers today are going to be my loyal smokers tomorrow. So the exposure to his brands or his products, or maybe something they're hesitant, or they don't know, or whatever reason it is, that doesn't necessarily convert them into, like, say, into a sin compromiso daily smoker, which is one of my favorite cigars, is a step towards getting them into that loyalty, into that recurring state with the relationship with the brand. So we try to work as much in advance as possible. We've got, it's easy to say now because we're in October, but we've got the next 3-4 months with pretty much no wiggle room to change things. I always try to stay open, and we push paperwork and structuring as late as we possibly can, because things change, and sometimes we have to replace one cigar versus another. And now that we're doing different programs, it's a whole system behind how do we structure these maps in order to lay out the products and ship them out to our members. But that's typically how we go about it. We have to establish a relationship. We exchange intent and exchange ideas, and then we make it happen. We typically go for brands that have certain validation. I see a lot of people reaching out to us because they see an outlet to give exposure to their brands. And while I feel flattered, if I haven't seen you in the last, couple of years in trade shows, going to events, doing different things, and just trying to hop on a couple catalogs and subscription service, I think you're kind of taking a little bit of a corner. You're trying to cut corners. You're trying to, and I'd say this in a respectful way. I say this in an encouraging way to say, people, there's a lot of brands out there. Everybody that we work with have a lot of investment in sales rep and brokers that, now I'm giving them credit. I kind of feel I burned them a little bit, but that was my intention. Obviously, they're just like, the brick and mortar, the backbone of this industry, and making sure that the shops themselves are stocked with the products that need be. But if you don't invest in structure and a platform and do it correctly, we're probably not the ideal partner for you to cut that corner. And I say this respectfully. I say this encouragingly. Validate your brand, validate your intentions, and your doors you're gonna find a lot more open doors with us and other people.
Now, I know you're working on some special kind of releases. One with Blackbird, Jonas, who's been on here, who's very fun to talk to, and another with Enrique over at Matilde, who's another kind of friend of the show. So, what can you tell us about these two releases?
Okay. So the cat's out of the bag with Jonas. That's awesome. I'm actually seeing him. I think Friday. First, let's start with Matilde. It's a product we've been working on for a while. It's been delayed for a little bit more than it should have. And if you look back at our history, things that have been delayed turn out to be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I.e. Madcap, which was a project that was spearheaded by Bradley Rubin. That was delayed for a little bit more than 6 months. So it turned out to be 1 year and 2 months after we produced the cigar. Cigar is just impeccable. I mean, I have like 30 that I just run through them. It's an unbelievable cigar. I thank them for the mishaps that we went through. Other cigars include. Let me think. There's a few other cigars that were delayed. I mean, one of the Davidoff cigars that we did with the Mulberry Spring was delayed, and now this. It's an honor to have an extension to make it a My Cigar Pack exclusive, something that we did together just spontaneously when we were validating the last round of El Mysterious Tiger 2.0, which was last year, and now having it released pretty much a year later. Hostos is doing a phenomenal job. I mean, if you've tried his cigars, I'm proud of what he's done as a friend and obviously as a manufacturing partner. And then Enrique and I worked together, in La Palma, and we're friends before, commercial partners.
Mm-hmm.
So Ella is going to be released it's called Ella, which it sounds like it's just like I think it's Hebrew origin, Ella. It sounds like a name, but it's Edición Limitada Americas, or Leah. I told them we should do a different band and call it Leah, Limited Edition Americas. It's going to be a limited edition just for the Americas, not going to be sold in Europe, and we are going to initially introduce it. We're going to have a few months just in My Cigar Pack and in Cigar Yard, and then he will ship, export just from the factory to the Dominican market. And then he will see how he will place it in the North American market, i.e. Canada and the US, besides from what we were doing. So that cigar is a 6x50 or 6x52. It's got a delicious San Andres wrapper. It's got a really light cut, so it's not your typical, bulky kind of tusk San Andres, which is kind of throws you off because you think it's something else, and you think it's like a sun-grown Habano or H2000. Delicious cigar. I don't think I should get into it a little bit more just because we're so close to releasing it, but loving that cigar, loving the opportunity. And then with Jonas, it was just, we've been kind of teasing that cigar for a little bit. The blend wasn't made when we teased that cigar initially. We teased Quantum, a brand that we created for Factory Direct as a kind of like a side project to kind of get feedback and see what people liked. We took the direction that people gave us in terms of feedback. I went to him, and then we finally decided that the Vitola was going to be a little bit smaller because it smoked better in what he had, and it's going to be released in December. Bands are ready now, and they're looking beautiful. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And Quantum will be developed more as a more solid brand. I'm not sure if we're going to do the Habano version of Quantum that's already planned with Blackbird. Blackbird's going to release the Maduro, but again, very excited Jonas is a character, and excited to work with him. Happy to work with him.
See, and I think that's what makes it very interesting, all the collaborations that you do, because you did a collaboration with Hot Ticket guys, right?
Yep. Made by Rodriguez Cigars, Key West, my boy Danny. That was an ongoing process. We had to do a final changes at the end, kind of make it a little bit more subtle, just because of different things that were going on. And we were initially going to call it the Donger, just because the boys, how they how they talk, they're just they're my boys. They're hilarious. And yeah, that was pretty successful in terms of engagement with their following and just loving the opportunity of having their name on a cigar. And that was awesome. But it seems like before, I want to say this last summer, we weren't releasing a cigar every month, and now we are. Now we're close to, at some point we're going to be releasing two. I just came back. I just flew in. This is my same clothes from this morning. First thing, I left the DR. I was there for a week, and we've got a lot of things coming up. We've got projects that I started working just when things opened up post pandemic with Phil Zongi from Debonair. Projects from La Aurora. I mean, I can quickly just show you a bunch of things. These are all the blends that we did. That
Wow.
I'm gonna have to just go check and smoke them by code and validate which goes. I mean, there's so much going on, and probably gonna head down to Nicaragua, probably late March, and follow up on different projects. We've got something going on for later in the year with Aganorsa, and I want to work with every validated and admirable factory there is. I think that's a goal, and if we have to release a new project in order to fit in 2 releases every month, we'll do it.
What I think is cool about what you do as well is that you really engage with the audience in a modern kind of way. Like, even though my main thing is writing, I know that people don't read like they used to. And my thing lately has been like long form writing, as I call it. So you're talking about 1,000 or 2,000 words, and it tells a complete story, but it's very hard to get people to like read that story. And the funny thing is that I started to subscribe to your YouTube channel a couple months ago. So I'm one of those people, like, at the end of the day, right before anything on TV comes on, I jump on YouTube to get caught up on silly stuff like video game news and all this kind of stuff. And I see your face pop up in my little YouTube feed several times, a month, at least once a week, it seems like. So I like that you do that, because I keep telling people, especially in the cigar industry, like, video is where it's at. Like, it doesn't have to be a good video. It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be like a studio kind of setup. Just pull out your phone and start doing a video and post that video like you do, like on YouTube and on Instagram and wherever you want to. But to me, video is like the most engaging, because people get to, without a platform like this, people would, just see you, on Instagram, or those who follow you on YouTube. But to get to hear your thoughts and you reveal kind of like all the new stuff, I know that it got a lot of people, especially Anthony, who was watching, who was saying like the Factory Direct program is the best subscription base in the business. And he was saying that when you're showing all the samples, that you were spilling the tea. So, all excited.
I'm happy to. I want to get the people amped. But yeah, I mean, as you were saying, you just gotta pull out your phone and start recording. I mean, I've dropped the ball. I want to say the last couple of months, because the YouTube has been a little slow, but we have a revamp plan that we're going to bring back, the podcast, and just do continuous episodes like we did before. I'd love to have you on board and just talk
Yeah.
whatever. What's your humidor preferences?
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll do it. We're structuring a new plan to bring it back, and then I just shot really, really cool content for the projects that we're developing in the Dominican Republic. So at least in the DR, we're going to have somebody, a correspondent there, that's going to be going to every different factory and do it just completely disconnected from My Cigar Pack's interest, but just funneled through us. So we're going to do features on all the products in, say, the Casada lineup, right? So we'll have Manolo or Raquel just break down different cigars, and we'll feature them in different episodes. So if you want to learn about, the Manolo Quesada 75th anniversary, there's going to be one video, 2-3 minutes of just Manolo breaking down that cigar, talking about the history and things like that. So I expect our YouTube channel to have at least 2 to 3 uploads, and even perhaps more once we get the ball rolling every week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think, what have you found personally when it comes to engagement and building a community? Because what I think you do especially well is that, some of the manufacturers struggle a little bit with how do you really build a online community, and that, that feels engaged, that feels connected, and it's not just a transaction, and I think that I know you're probably going to say you're still working out the kinks of it and figuring it out, but what have you kind of learned about that? Because I'm always very interested about community building and kind of building up a fan base.
So yes, I will say that I'm still figuring it out, but I can tell you a couple of points from the start of My Cigar Pack to where we are now. So I don't have personal social media. I haven't had an Instagram account since, I want to say, 2016 or maybe early 2017. So 5-6 years ago, completely got disconnected from social media. I didn't at the time enjoy, virtually engaging with people. I wanted to be working, and then when I wasn't working, I wanted to see people. I wanted to connect with people. If I wanted to hang out with you, I would call you, or you would call, or expect that if you wanted to hang out with me, you would call me. So I had kind of I don't know if that's like a mid social media life crisis, just because the more modern platforms that we use, say Instagram launched, I think 2012. At the time, I want to say that's like half its age, or a little less actually. But when I started My Cigar Pack, I wanted to just put out good pictures and stuff like that. I was working with different photographers. I would take nice pictures, but it would take me a lot of time, and I didn't understand, the value of these platforms, of just like Zoom and stuff like that. It took me a while. It took me post-pandemic, like towards the end of like the first few months of the pandemic, to get on one live and then another one. And I think I lost in My Cigar Pack, just our platform, a lot of opportunity, a lot of ground, right? So growing an Instagram account nowadays seems like it's impossible. But a couple, even a year ago, 2 years ago, if you were active, if you were doing videos, lives, and posting twice, you were gaining a lot of followers, right? So I think, we have a solid following, and I think it's very organic. So if whoever follows us, we got like 13 something thousand followers, and we're getting like, 500 likes or 1,000 likes or 200 likes. I don't care about the likes. It's just, I know it's actual people that are liking the post because they're connected to us, right? It's not a mass, but I feel it was a lost opportunity. And then it took us a while. I'm not very tech oriented. It's taken me a while to get the hang of it, but I felt like for the longest time, it wasn't necessarily about not being myself, but I felt like I had to have some kind of branding or structural lineage in the exposure for pictures, for videos, or whatever. Now I'll just go to a park if I'll grab somebody, hey, just record me from my shoulder, and then I'll light a cigar, and then I'll light it from pointing towards me, and then I'll do a reel, throw up an audio, and it'll get like 500 likes, and it's like actual people enjoying that authentic content. So it might sound a little corny, but it's more of being a little bit more of yourself, just I've taken my cigar pack as my personal social media platform, at least on Instagram. YouTube is a little bit more planned in terms of, just grab a phone and record yourself, but do it purposely, do it with intention. And now that, I feel like it's more targeted, it's more restricted at the same time, you got to be careful. So all we want to do right now is give exposure to the brands that work with us and use it as an educational pivot for the people that follow us. It's more of a thank you more than here's what I have, buy more. So I think it's a little bit more about enjoying what you do and just being yourself. It'll flow better.
Well, I think, like you said, I think you kind of see the My Cigar Pack and you kind of merging, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I think people relate to things when they feel like there's an actual person behind it. And I've always said this about the cigar brands. Like it's hard for me sometimes to connect with certain cigar brands when you don't really see a specific person behind it. It just feels, it could be a great cigar, but it just feels like a little flat. But when you see like a person like really come out there and you do, like, I think you kind of learn that you had to kind of mix little elements of your personality in there. Like you like your football, so you get a bit of that.
Yeah, you get a bit and it just being funny sometimes. Like it doesn't hurt. I've done like stupid videos. I mean, I was walking and I heard somebody playing like one of the Nacho Libre songs, and I did like the Nacho Libre split when he splits and has like his butt cheeks and it was funny. Like whoever thinks I'm not professional because of it can just go elsewhere or actually just make fun of me. That's fine. I enjoy it, and it seems that a lot of people see that that's part of our personality. It's not like we're jokester. It's more of like, this is just cigars. We're just here having fun. And in that sense, but connecting back to what you were saying, for the longest time, like even like one of my best partners, best business advisors and mentors, my father, right? We have completely different businesses. His is just opposite, but he'll tell me, you got to show your face, buddy. I'm like, dude, it's not about me. It's not about me. And I'll go to events, and then like, really cool people, photographers in the industry will take pictures of me lighting up a cigar and they'll send it to me. And then I'll never post it just because why would I post a picture about myself? But every now and then I've become a little bit more comfortable by posting a picture of me, just because people need to see a face to feel there's somebody there that's putting in the work. Sometimes I'll just post like, three lines without my face on it, and people are like, I wonder who's running that. And right. I'll just randomly grab one of the old pictures and just post it. Not because I want people to look at me, and I'm not like, I feel I've always felt it's narcissistic in the sense of, we're all extremely narcissistic on social media. Why post a picture for others to like, right? In essence, that is extremely narcissistic, but that's part of human nature. That's part of why we wear clothes that we like to feel good in. That's why maybe not me, that's why we kind of comb our hair or wear a hat or stuff like that, just because feeling good with yourself is also part of, it also includes part that is what you represent, what you present to society, to others, to the world. So while in essence, I don't agree with that, it is kind of part of our human nature.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think it shows, whenever I post a promo for the show, And, I always look at the comments, and you got some really, unique comments from people who are just excited, who obviously know who you are. From people like Matt Booth and Eddie Guerra was, glad to see you on. And I think that kind of shows, but this is a relationship driven business. So I think, like you said, putting yourself out there, and I think you found a balance, at least, that works, that you're able to participate in social media to your company. Yeah.
Still finding it, but that's part of it, right? That's part of it.
Before we get to the final questions, in terms of like what you're seeing, because I'm pretty sure that you probably see a whole bunch of interesting data or get at least from really good feedback from just cigar consumers out, who get your packs. What are they looking for in a cigar today, or what are they liking?
So it's in essence part of how we operate. We have so many different options that we kind of push the one that people are inclined towards, but at the same time, it's a struggle with brands. At the same time, I want to see more of this. So what I've learned with at least my particular subscriber base, besides the fact that they want to learn, don't we all? We want to discover what's out there. There's so much out there that we haven't tried. But I see my particular base smoking a lot more of stronger cigars than you would typically expect from, the median smoker, that based on our data in terms of age, in terms of location, because I can tell if there are star subscribers, and I call stars because they're giving you a demographic that's not correlated to where they're from. And this is very particular, right? So somebody in Texas, Ohio, New York, Florida is going to be part of 4 of the largest selling states, right? So when you have more data from those states, or little or less data from those states, and you correlate it to what is typically sold in those states, that is, pretty much known information in the industry, it's interesting to see. At the same time, star states are states, where you can't have so much concise insight as what you have in the biggest selling states, just like Texas or New York or Florida and the Midwest. You saw a lot, somebody in the West Coast, somebody from like Seattle is going to give you a completely different insight on and then when you start seeing a pattern, and then when you start seeing more and more people from Seattle particularly contrast the traditional, even though it's minimal and even though it can be variable, just because it isn't that broad of a cigar smoking state, it gives you kind of an interesting outlook on how the industry is changing, on how the market's changing. 6x60s are in one day, 6x60s are out another day. Lanceros are in one day, they're out the other day. There are obviously patterns of consistencies that you have to look at. So smoking strong is one of them. And then the new programs, they want new things, right? So we've been able to kind of weather a little bit of a halt that some other people have experienced, maybe not particularly my competitors, but there's a little bit of hurt in some senses in the industry. And we've kind of weathered that through, it's going to sound a little snobby, but through innovation, right? So we bring new programs and trying new things, and kind of, we've had some misses, but a lot of them have been hits. And so they want to see variety, they want to see new things, and they're smoking stronger. I think that those are kind of the points I can give you based on what we see on our insights.
Awesome. The final 2 questions are questions I ask everyone who comes on Deep Cuts. So the first of those questions is, what motivates you to do what you do?
Oh, wow. The more spiritual answer is freedom. I think I've covered the more practical approach to why I do what I do and how I do it. I love cigars. I've always loved cigars. I fell in love with cigars 15 years ago, probably a lot earlier than I should have. I can't believe that, I have to set a couple hours aside in my day to try those cigars I just showed you and pick which ones are going to be the final ones. That's my job, and that's important. Whether you find it funny or not, I find it funny. It's funny, but it's an important aspect of my job because that's going to dictate the potential success they're going to have in the market and their reaction and pleasing our members that trust us to do what we do. And then the reason I will always be an entrepreneur, it's freedom. And this outlet has given me the opportunity to do what I love for the purpose that I love. I love working. I won't sit here and tell you I'm the hardest working person there is, but I love working. On my terms. If I want to go and, there's some nice waves in South Beach, I'll go and surf the whole morning, wipe my morning, but you rest assured I'll be working from lunchtime till after midnight nonstop. And I'll probably have to sacrifice other personal things to do that. But I did that on my terms because I wanted to, not when my schedule dictated. So the freedom is why, in essence, I do it. And the love for cigars, obviously, which is something that I'm sure you get a lot, is why I do this.
And the final question is, someone comes to you, they say they have an idea for a business. It's not necessarily a cigar or tobacco related business, but they know that you've done it and they want advice on how to get started. What's your advice to that new entrepreneur who has a business idea or product that they want to put out there?
If I'm not mistaken, I answered something similar, more oriented towards subscription based in your article a while back. But my advice, I'm always very open, extremely open. My advice would first be make sure that you really like what you're going to do, because one thing is working for a company and then finding it out. But as a business owner, things aren't easy. You're going to face curveballs every single day. So make sure you love it before you get into it. And besides understanding that you need to be prepared, and that preparedness comes through the passing of time, there is no book you're going to read that's going to teach you everything. There's no experience that you've witnessed before jumping into it by yourself that collectively was going to guide you into doing something. But don't be afraid. If you love it, jump and you'll figure it out along the way. But consciously understand that you're going to actively need to find those answers along the way. If I'm clear with that, don't be afraid. Don't prepare for 2 years before you jump into something. Have a base, have a foundation, and then jump. Don't think about it. Once you jump, just be aware. Just keep your eyes open. Listen. Ask for others that have done it in the past for their opinion. Don't be afraid to ask. People will be more open than you think, and keep an open mind.
Awesome. Well, before we sign off, could you tell people, especially those who may be listening to this, if they haven't seen the banner that's been up, could you tell people what website they need to visit, what social media they need to follow for My Cigar Pack and also Cigar Yard?
Absolutely. So My Cigar Pack on Instagram, as it shows in the banner below. Website is mycigarpack.com. Make sure to check out, as Antoine mentioned earlier, our YouTube channel. We're going to put a lot more energy and effort into it in the next few months. So it's going to be fun. And I promise you, it's not going to be just straightforward selling. It's going to be having fun. Honestly, we want to get it to a point where it's so important to us that we have to do it, and we are not just doing it for sakes of having content out there, and have your eyes peeled, because we're going to have a couple new websites coming November. So those are going to be game changers for us. I hope you all enjoy them. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today. Like I said, I say this to everyone, but I do mean it. Like, when I have my roster of people that I want to have on the show, like, as I've gotten to know you, and especially after you invited me to the Casada virtual event, I think it was last year, but I was like, I want to have Alex on, but we have to have things settled, because I've been trying to figure out this whole format. So now that we've finally got it StreamYard situated, I'm glad you were able to kind of come on and, like I said, share some insights with us. And hopefully you'll come back. And now that we got all the intro stuff out of the way, we can really dive into some other cigar stuff. Because I know that you are a cigar nerd. Somebody called me a cigar nerd a couple weeks ago, and I was like, there's other people who know far more than cigar stuff. So if there's anyone in the industry who, like I said, who knows cigars and tobacco, you're definitely one of those people that I consider to be one of those expert people in, like, and if you
far from it, but I appreciate the cigar nerd aspect of it. I do love it a lot. And just to wrap it up, thank you. I'm humbled. I really mean it. I don't care if 5 people see this or 5,000. This is part of what I do and why I do it, sharing experiences with people. So again, if you want me on and you need a sub next week and I'm available, I'll be happy to jump on board and just talk whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be cigars. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate it, and I look forward to doing it again.
Awesome. So for anybody watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, just make sure you hit that like or subscribe button. And if you're listening to this on any of the podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, iHeartRadio, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a review if you could. As I always say, if you have something nice to say, you can post that. If you don't have something nice to say, you can also post that, because there's always room for improvement. So you're not going to hurt my feelings either way. So if you missed any of this episode, it will be up on deepcutslive.com probably tomorrow morning. And if you missed out on any other 111 interviews, you could catch up on those as well on deepcutslive.com and also on YouTube. So we have another podcast coming up next week. So you all have plenty of time to get caught up on old episodes and get prepped and all hyped up for the new stuff. So thank you, Alex, again, and thank you everyone for watching.